So welcome back, everybody. I'm Katie. I'm Adding Up Addingtons, and today I am continuing the conversation with my very great friend Pam about being a single adoptive mom. If you missed the first part of our conversation about being a single mom in foster care, I will link that for you below. Be sure to go and check that out. But today we are going to focus a little bit more on the specifically adoption side of things. And so I am super excited that Pam has agreed to come and talk with us and just share her experience with us. So if you are just stopping in here for the first time, I am a mom of 8 and we homeschool and we own our own company, and we are former foster parents. We are an adoptive family and we love to travel and adventure together. So I would love for you to hit that subscribe button down below if you are interested in any or all of those things, and stick around with us because we love to share our adventures with you. My buddy Pam here, who I've known for almost 13 years, I met her when I first moved to Tennessee, and we both have the common ground of being originally from Minnesota and transplanted to Tennessee. And so Pam started doing foster care. If you missed the last video, Pam started doing foster care I think like 8 months after we did, after kind of watching us get started, and then jumped in a little bit later. But she is now the adoptive mom of 2 sweet little boys who we just love and adore. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about adoption as a single mom, because I'm not the expert, so I have to go to the expert. If you know me, you know that I cannot function without my husband. So Pam is a better woman than I am. All right. So thanks for being here again and continuing this conversation.
Woo!
Woo! All right. So we talked about kind of how you got into foster care and the context of that in your life, but what personally made you decide to move from just doing foster care per se into adoption, and how was that decision for you?
So I went into foster care knowing that if I had a child placed with me, that reunification just never ended up being an option. Yeah. Other options that go before adoption fell through, that I was ready to adopt. Like, that was something that I went into foster care knowing. Like I had said in the other video, adoption was something that was in the back of my head from a really long time ago. And then even after having kids in my home, I can't imagine taking these babies and bringing them home from the hospital and then getting to the point where they are legally free for adoption and saying no thank you. There are people who do it and their calling is just different. Yeah, so there are people who just do foster care and that's all they do, and they are called just to stand in the gap for those kids who are either going to go home or not and eventually get adopted. Imagine that would be a really, really hard place to live in, and I can't imagine living in that place, but I'm really grateful for the people who do, because you need somewhere to land while the adults in their life figure it out.
Right. I have talked before about our Josianah was with another foster family for the first 1.5 years of her life. And they just did not feel that they were the right ones to adopt her. And so I know that that was really, really hard for them, but I'm also very thankful for the role that they played in her life. So when you decided to move into the adoption sort of phase of this process, as it were, because if you don't know, foster care is a whole lot of like back and forth. And as we said in the last video, there's no normal. there's no like standard process. There will be like, yes, this child is going to stay with you. Oh, they're going to move to another state and be with this relative. Oh, well, mom and dad made some progress. Oh, nope, they're staying with you. Well, we're going to terminate rights, but we have to wait for this hearing it's all over the board. And it is a wild roller coaster of a process. But as it were, when you kind of move towards the adoption side of this, did you encounter any like additional reactions or reactions from people and what they said or did? And, you know, what was like good or hard about those reactions?
Nothing specifically like moving into adoption at that point. Pretty much everybody knew the story, knew what was going on. It wasn't really new information. Once we got to the point where it was like we were setting a date or waiting for a date, you know, stuff like that, it was more just like, congratulations, you know, like home stretch. Because the home stretch is rough. Like, everybody knows what's going to happen. And some weird reaction, like not necessarily the process of adoption, but like I ran into people who I like acquaintance people who I knew, but not well enough that they had like walked through this journey with me. Like I ran into people in the grocery store with my boys, and like I got asked if I was babysitting. No, they're mine. Oh, I didn't know you were married. I'm not. They're still mine though.
Right.
Just like some awkward things that people kind of blurt out sometimes.
Right. That's like a whole nother video that I could make. One of my particular favorites was as you were doing all the necessary paperwork and legal legwork and stuff for adoption was Caseworkers' response.
Yes. So my first placement and your girls had the same caseworker, so we knew each other. And I don't remember what hearing I was at court for, but I was at court for a hearing and happened to see her in the waiting room. And so we were just kind of chatting about what was going on and where the case was with my oldest, and that we were moving towards adoption. That maybe it was a TPR hearing. But anyway, and she asked if I had a name picked out, and I did at that point. And so I shared it with her, and she was like, oh, that sounds like an Addington name. Did Katie help you pick that?
If you want to know what constitutes an Addington name, I did make a whole video on how we choose our kids' names. But yes, our kids have pretty distinctive names, and we may have rubbed off a little bit.
Well, the process rubbed off.
Right. But yes, no, her boys fit right in our house. So that I did think that was funny, both that we had that reputation and that she could point it out.
And she is not the only person who said that.
Oh, no, we got that a lot, actually. So talk a little bit about the legal process going into adoption. You know, were there any particular considerations that you had to take as a single parent, and like how does that work with court documents and birth certificates and all of the things?
So not having done this as a married person, I assume that all of the documents are the same. It just has my name instead of two names in like on all of the adoption paperwork. As far as I know, the only thing that was different was when I filled out the birth certificate form to get new birth certificates. So if you don't know, like, you get issued new birth certificates when you adopt, and it just has
Right. Good. That's a good
my
one.
name on them as if I gave birth, even though I have never given birth.
I had a baby in a different state when I was 19 and I didn't know it for 13 years.
So because I'm not married, there's no father to put on the birth certificate. And so I had the option of either leaving it blank or putting adopted in the father field, which I thought was weird. So I didn't do it. I just left it blank. I don't know. It just seemed weird to me.
Yes, that is, I don't know if I've ever covered that specifically, but when you adopt a child, even a child from foster care, you are issued a new birth certificate with you listed as their parent. They don't get a separate birth certificate with the bio parents' names on it or whatever. Like it is legally as if you had birthed that child. So that's why we joke that I had a baby in a separate state when I was 19, but I didn't know about it for 13 years because the birth certificate has my name on it. Yeah, so that was definitely a difference. I know on both the birth certificates and the court orders, the official court document that you get for us had both of our full legal names on it. So that is the only difference then, is that you only have to have one name on those things. What do you think is either like the best or most rewarding part of being an adoptive mom, or what's the hardest part about it, or both?
Or both. Well, it's probably kind of like the double-edged sword of being it. It's just me, and so that translates to being really hard because I don't get to tap out when I'm tired or just don't want to, whatever. I don't want a mom today. I don't get a choice. I got a mom anyway. I have a funny story about getting food poisoning. That wasn't so fun. And being up half the night and like looking at my clock and kind of doing the math of when my son was going to wake up in the morning, and knowing that I hadn't slept and I was so sick, and making the decision to like make myself throw up before he woke up so that it would just be done and I wouldn't have to deal with it with a baby underfoot. And I was telling a friend this story, and she was like, "You were like a walking birth control advertisement," which was even funnier because I've never been pregnant.
Right.
I was like, I gotta do it. I gotta do it now before he wakes up, so that I'm not trying to deal with a baby and this. And then after he did wake up, I called a friend and was like, "Hey, I have food poisoning, and I need you to come get my kid because I can't function right now, and I don't think I can." Like, he was in daycare, and I could have taken him to daycare, except that I didn't think I could drive him to daycare.
Right.
So yeah, another friend came and picked him up and kept him all day and fed him dinner and then brought him back. And I slept off my tummy grossness.
What would you tell people who are exploring or wondering about adoption as a single person? Any encouragement or things to think about? And then maybe even the people in their circles, like what would you tell the people around them?
Go do it.
Worth it.
It's, yeah, totally worth it. And you know, granted, my oldest is 3, so he's, you know, doesn't have, well, he has opinions, but you know what I mean.
I have yet to meet a 3-year-old that doesn't.
Right. But he does not care that I am a single mom.
Right.
But he does care that I'm there and that I'm mom. And so there are so many kids out there that need parents, and they don't care if you're a single mom. They just want a mom, or any parent, I guess single dads too. But so go figure out what it looks like in your state, and then as a single mom who, I have a good job, but you know, like, it's not like a 6-7 figure job by any stretch of the imagination. Like, domestic adoption just wasn't an option for me, or not domestic, private adoption. That's the word I keep looking for. Private adoption just wasn't an option. And so adopting through foster care just made much more financial sense.
You know, and maybe you guys out there have seen before where people say, I wish that the government would fund adoptions, and they do. It's called foster care. And if we haven't like stated that clearly in this video, I know that I have covered it in the past, and I think we've alluded to it, but there is no personal legal cost to you as someone adopting from foster care. The state pays your legal fees, your court fees, all of that. You have to prove that you are financially stable to provide your own needs, but there is no outside cost to adopt from foster care. So if we haven't like explicitly explained that yet, that is something that I find I didn't know that before we started doing foster care. And I think most people don't know that, like provide for that child for the rest of their lives. But it's not like the tens of thousands of dollars that we tend to associate in our head with the costs of private adoption, be that international or domestic adoption. How about the circles of single people looking into adoption? What would you tell the people in their communities?
It's gonna be a lot the same as anybody looking into adoption. They're gonna need their village. They're gonna need childcare, and they're gonna need meals, and you know, what have you. The childcare might be a little more important. Childcare might be more important for single parents, especially. I know when I was doing foster care, and there's a whole bunch of continuing education that you have to do for foster care. And until COVID changed a lot of things, and they put a whole bunch of stuff online, which was really helpful. But prior to that, almost all of it was in person, and childcare was not provided.
Right.
So yeah, my mom and stepdad watched my kids quite a bit while I did.
Right. Yeah, that was always an adventure for us, even because we would have to go to in-person classes, and at that point we had like six at home, I think, and you know, finding a babysitter for 6 kids is not a walk in the park. So yes. So what's next for you? Where are you at in this process of foster care and adoption, and any further plans or dreams?
Where I'm at is my home is officially closed as far as foster care goes. After my second was adopted, there were a lot of reasons why I made the decision to close my home. There had been some changes with DCS, and I was just getting a little frustrated with people, the specific people that I was working with, not like DCS as a whole. Just
Right.
there were some frustrations there, and then as a single mom, I know there are single moms who have way more kids than I do, and that is, I don't even know. But 2, I think 2 might be, at least for now, my max. And I just didn't feel like I could handle more kids. And then also at the time, I lived in a 2-bedroom townhouse that I rented. And so I had a bedroom and my boys shared a bedroom, and I did not have another space or a bed for another kid. Like, logistically, my house was full.
Right.
So all those things went into making the decision to close my home, as well as just feeling like my family was complete. I've heard a lot of other moms talking about just kind of knowing when they were done having kids, and always thinking that was kind of weird until I got to where I was, and I was like, I get it now. Because I think my family is done. So yeah, I have no further plans for fostering or adopting. I think the one thing that might change that, would possibly change that in the future, would be if either of my boys had a biological sibling born and contacted me and said, hey, there is a sibling and they need a home. Would you consider reopening your home and doing, kind of a kinship type thing? Which, just knowing the life situations of my kids' biological families, I don't think that's super likely. But it's always a possibility.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for following along with us for this series. Thank you so much to our great buddy Pam, Auntie Pam. My kids call her Auntie Pam. We are not actually related, but she's always been our auntie in this house. And so thankful that she could come and join us in the middle of her workday. And I know that I have kept her way longer than I intended to. So we will let her get back to work, but thank you so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below to follow along for more foster care and adoption information, as well as other family adventures and information. I'm so glad that you are here. Let me know what other questions you have about foster care and adoption, and I will do my best to address those in future videos. Thank you so much for being here and following along with us, and we'll see you next time.